If you feel like you're fighting your helicopter in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, let's fix that. If you're always pushing forward on the stick, you're not trimming it correctly. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how helicopter trim works in MSFS 2024 and how to set it up properly, whether you're using a good quality HOTAS, a budget joystick, or even a gamepad. I'll cover the default helicopters, how force trim really behaves, and what changes with popular add-ons. By the end of this guide, I aim to have you flying smoother, maneuvering with ease, and finally enjoying helicopters the way they are meant to be flown. Let's fix your trim and let's fly. And what a lovely spring morning in Rijeka, Croatia for me to be showing you all I know about trim in MSFS 2024. Let's get on board. And before we get started with anything else, what even is trim and what's it for in a helicopter? Well, here's our cyclic control, right? Just moving that around. When I need to get moving forwards in the Huey or any helicopter really, I'm going to need to be moving the cyclic stick forwards in order for us to pick up energy and proceed forwards and accelerate, right? Simple. However, I'm going to get a very tired arm, especially if I've got a heavily sprung joystick down here, if I have to keep holding it forward the entire time that we're flying. So I don't want to do that. So I let go of the stick. What's going to happen? The nose is going to spring up and we're going to, be in an unhealthy flight situation. So maybe if we were in a fixed wing aircraft, we would have something like a trim tab on this horizontal stabilizer, or maybe the whole thing would be a trimmable horizontal stabilizer that we could adjust to achieve more or less the same attitude in the helicopter while we're flying. Well, in the helicopter, that's just not the case. We don't have any trim tabs. Generally speaking, we don't have any trim tabs. We don't have any other trimmable hardware on the exterior of the aircraft to help maintain our flight, our attitude in flight. So how do we do it on a helicopter, especially a sort of a manual helicopter like this Huey? Well, we've got a button up here on the cyclic called, in MSFS 2024, it's called trim release. In the real machine, that would be something called the force trim release. And so what that would do is release these magnets that center the stick in a certain position that you as the pilot choose. So if I were taking off and I was holding it forward the entire time and I was getting a tired arm, maybe I would use that force trim release button there to force the magnets to recenter on the location that we're currently at. Doesn't mean that we still can't nudge the stick from that position to control our attitude and therefore our direction in our flight, but the force trim release holds the stick in a new center, and therefore that attitude is held more or less as we proceed in our flight. Now, unless we are using in simulation a very high-end force feedback stick, which I don't have, we are not using any kind of a system that has the ability to hold our stick in a certain position. So maybe if you are using a high-end stick like a VP Rhino or a Moser or something, maybe you're using software which can actually hold the stick in that position and more or less replicate that force trim functionality that you might get in a helicopter like this. In something simple like a Cabri G2 trainer helicopter, that would instead be electrically holding the entire cyclic stick in the new trimmed position, and instead of a force trim release switch, it would be on a kind of a hat switch situation where you just nose down, nose up, nose left, nose right. So that's what it would be like in real life. For the most part, most simulator pilots aren't going to be using that kind of equipment, so therefore the question is, what can we do? I'll show you the controls I have defined, so let's just get going with this. I am using a hat switch here on the Orion 2 HOTAS stick, and so if I go left on that hat switch, you can see it's picked up, it's the POV left there, and that's mapped to my decrease rotor lateral trim. Very confusing title. I don't know why it's not just rotor lateral trim left, but it isn't. If I again search by input and go right, you'll see I've got that mapped to increase rotor lateral trim. I'll demonstrate all of these shortly. And then with the nose down, we've got that on decrease rotor longitudinal trim, and nose up is going to increase rotor longitudinal trim. Again, it's confusing, but that's just the way it is. And the last one, well, there's actually two more that I've got mapped. When I push down on my hat switch, we can see this is going to rotor trim reset, not something that exists for the most part in general aviation helicopters in real life. And the other one is I've got this red switch here going to something called quick trim, and there's really no other way for me to explain what that is other than to show you in a minute. So I will now get this helicopter started up, get it onto the runway, and I'll show you what all of these do and how we would use this in a normal simulator session. Alright, on the runway, ready to go, and on the screen I've also got one of my favourite all-time helicopter add-ons. It's just the input viewer available free from flightsim.to. Thank you so much to the author for your good work there. I have just faked it here for a moment just to show you that the trim is that tiny X, so I can just move that round like so. I'm just going up and down there, you can see that moving in, and when I click in with that trim reset, it goes back into the middle. That's normally how we would start off. Okay, moving along, and no trim has been applied yet. I'm going to increase the collective. We are gathering speed 60 knots now. That's probably about our best climb speed, so I pull back initially to lift the nose and to gain height, and I'm just going to now bring that forward. Oh, I'm getting told off by ATC because I forgot to turn it off. So we now are in a position where I need to pull a bit more collective there, level flight, gaining speed, and look at the input viewer. Notice that I'm having to hold the stick forward the entire time. That's exactly what I was talking about before. So on my lightly sprung Orion 2 HOTAS, I've actually taken the springs out, and the only centering force is the rubber boot at the base of the stick. But even I'm going to get tired having to hold this here the whole time. So what can we do? We can nose down, and you see the little X move forward, and at this point I can actually go hands off on the stick. We're actually losing a bit of height there, so I'll just fix that. In a helicopter, a manual helicopter especially, you're not really going to fly around, you know, with your hands off the stick like that. That's just not something you would do if you valued your life, or at least your lunch. Nonetheless, in the simulator, just getting it to this point here where I can almost fly it hands-free is the goal. So I'm not having to apply that constant forward pressure on the stick. Apparently I need a tiny bit of left pedal in the Huey to keep myself going there. It's actually not my practice to apply any anti-torque trim. I don't even know if it's possible in MSFS 2024. I don't want to use it because I actually want to be in control of the pedals the entire time. I'm also feeling a bit of an inclination for the Huey to roll to the right, so I'm just going to go left. Maybe not quite that much. And it feels like we're about right there. One more tiny click to the left. It's more or less hands off now, and when I do want to change attitude or take a turn or whatever, I'm just pushing into that from that new center position, which in the real machine would have been achieved for us magnetically and electrically. Trying not to gain too much height there. Rolling back out again. What beautiful scenery. And we have zero effort flight right now. And with the Xbox controller, all the same principles apply, except here are the controls. You hold down the right bumper by default, and then you use the right stick. So I can go up on the nose there, or down on the nose there. Bit of nose left trim there, nose right, nose up, and release when you're ready. That's approximately where we were at. So it's the right bumper and the right stick, and that gets you that trim. Oh, you could spend all day on this, getting this right. Alright, heading back in the direction of the field, and I'm going to reduce power, and what that is going to result in is a nose down attitude, which I'm going to have to fix with the trim. So each time I change power in helicopter, I need to re-trim. So we keep an eye on that. So a little bit less power, bit of a wind gust there, knocked us over a bit. So that's about stable now in its new power position, 60 knots now. I was down from about 100 before, so about 60 knots on. And again, if I was going to increase power at this point, what's going to happen? The nose is going to go up. Notice how that position here has changed so greatly, but let's just pull power up now, and we're going to see that the nose will want to go up. We're going to have to counteract that, but this time actually, instead of trying to counteract that with the longitudinal trim switches, I'm going to show you quick trim now. This one is very confusing for people who come from DCS, because it's kind of the other way around. It doesn't mean that it's buggy or wrong, it's just different, and for me personally it's fine. Having increased the power again, am now having to nose down, and I'm holding the stick forwards. Again, that's going to be tiring. So what I can do with the quick trim is hold the quick trim button down, center the stick in its neutral position, release the quick trim, and then I just bumped the stick on the way out there. It's still a bit nose up, so we'll just fix that by going nose down, holding the quick trim, centering, and I can just fine tune the last little couple of bits there with the nose up and down, and I think that's about right. So what the quick trim does is, while you are holding it down, it translates the amount of movement to get your stick back into the center into the trim, and therefore it rebalances at that point. That's the concept. It actually works just fine. It just, as I said, confuses people who come from DCS because it's the other way around. But really, it's fine. You're already holding the stick in the position that you want to trim to, and so if I wanted to trim to this position now, probably not very safe, I would hold down these quick trim, move it to the center, release, and it's all applied like that. So that's how you use quick trim. Let's come around for the descent. Now, on approach into the field here, and I'm having to use a lot of aft stick right now because I never reset the trim, and so this is going to be a bit dramatic. If I hit the trim reset now, bzzz, up it comes the nose to bring the trim back to where it would be neutrally. That maybe the slightly smoother way to have done that would have been to use the quick trim. So usually when you do a landing and approach, you want to have that trim neutral so that you are working from the center of the stick without any trim applied. So normal procedure on your approach, make sure all of your trim is zeroed out so that you're kind of feeling the real helicopter. Now, what if you are flying a Cowan Simulations helicopter add-on like this one, the H130, very sleek looking machine? Well, all of the Cowan simulation helicopters, though they are developed in MSFS 2020, have a nice feature that works in 2024 as well, and that is HeliSAS. SAS standing for Stability Augmentation System. So before I turn on the SAS, here's what the trim does. It's exactly the same as what you've already seen in this video. So there's the input viewer with a lot of forward cyclic trim in there, as you can see, to keep our nose down and our speed up. So what happens if I engage SAS, the Stability Augmentation System? Okay, we notice that some of the vibrations come out, but the trim now works very slightly differently. Hands off. The oscillations are cancelled out to an extent. In fact, they're cancelled out. And now we've got perfectly stable helicopter flight. So the SAS does it for me, and if you'll watch the input viewer there, you'll see that when I move things around here with the stick, the trim kind of goes haywire. The trick here is to maybe not watch the trim, is to watch your attitude in the helicopter here. I'll just aim down the coast. I'll gently let it level out there. and the SAS kind of takes care of the rest. I'm not really having to do a whole lot here. I'm holding that, there we go. I'll keep the nose down to stop that rate of climb. That's with the trim, a bit more down trim. Speed's picking up. Don't want to lose altitude, but that's looking pretty good now. So the trim behaves somewhat differently. You're a little bit more hands-off. But with the SAS on, and I'm not going to go into these other SAS modes here, I've done another video on that, so I'll put the link up there. So with the SAS on, the trim does behave slightly differently. It behaves more like an attitude hold. And to adjust the attitude hold, I just pull back, for instance, on the longitudinal cyclic trim there, therefore the nose comes up, and then it's going to hold that attitude and it's going to do a very smooth job of it. So it works kind of the same. If I was just trying the quick trim there, it doesn't much like you using the 2024 quick trim, so maybe don't rest all of your hopes on being able to operate like that. Probably you're not going to be using quick trim so much with the H130 or the HeliSAS Cowan helicopters, but you do have the benefit of that SAS to stabilize everything that you're doing. So the MH60 family, a very popular add-on from Blackbird Simulations and Miltech Simulations, even more automated than the Cowan simulation family that we just tried out there. So what do I need to do with trim? Let's get the input viewer on. Answer, not much. Once you've got the SAS1 and SAS2 on and you've got trim on, it really is a very, very stable machine. And what you are doing, like the Cowan helicopters, what you're doing with the trim hat switch then is really telling it which attitude you want it to hold. And so it becomes a very hands-off process. And then once you've got the attitude you want, you're just putting in the inputs with the stick, and I'm just going to aim down the coast there to point really where you want to go. So it's really simple. Again, you probably don't want to be focusing too much on this input viewer, because especially when you've got the full autopilot on, it's going to be pretty concerning with all the, there it goes there, with all of the extra inputs it's going to put in. So don't get too distracted by what this thing over here is doing. It's all about maintaining a stable attitude, and the MH60 pack is going to help you do that with aplomb. So 3 different families of helicopters, and a focus on stable flight, hands-off flight, easy flight. Trim is your friend. Invest a bit of time in getting your controls right, making sure you're comfortable with them, and getting a smooth and easy result when you're here in the simulator. I hope you'll follow my newsletter. The link is right at the top of the video description. If you do so before the 21st of March 2026, you will go into the draw to win both a copy of Parallel 42's chase plane in combination with RK App's FS Realistic Plus for a really great simulator experience like you've seen me use today. If not that, I hope you could at least subscribe to the channel for more great helicopter content here in MSFS 2024. Thanks for watching this one, and I hope I'll catch you for another video real soon. See ya!